The Wild West was a land of untamed frontiers, lawless towns, and legendary outlaws. Here are the shocking truths behind the top 10 biggest and worst outlaw gangs. Check it out. Number 10. Rufus Buck Gang. In the rugged landscapes of the Wild West, a gang like no other emerged, known as the Rufus Buck Gang. This notorious outlaw group boasted a unique mix of members, comprising both African American and Creek Indian heritage. The gang's leader, Rufus Buck, cast a dark shadow over the territory when they rose to prominence in July of 1895. The Buck Gang, consisting of 5 members, including Creek Indians Sam Sampson and Maoma July, had a troubled past, having served time in Fort Smith Jail for minor offenses. However, it was their crime spree that shook the entire region to its core. Over a relentless 2-week period, they unleashed a reign of terror, committing robbery, rape, and murder with apparent randomness. But beneath the chaos lay a calculated motive. Rufus Buck, only 18 years old and born to a black mother and Creek father, harbored a fervent dream. He yearned for his gang's brutal spree to incite an Indian uprising, driving out the illegal white majority and reclaiming the territory for its native people. The Buck Gang's actions struck fear not only in the local white settlers, but also neighboring Indians and African American freedmen. However, their path of destruction finally met its end when a combined force of U.S. Deputy Marshals and the Creek Light Horse Police captured them outside Muskogee, Oklahoma on August 10th. The ruthless gang faced justice when they were executed on July 1, 1896 in Fort Smith. Theirs was the second to last execution to occur in the town, and the only one for rape. Number 9. Dalton Gang. There's no doubt that the Dalton Gang is among the earliest examples that can be found in the annals of outlaw lore. Comprising brothers Emmett M. Dalton, Robert Bob Rennick Dalton, and Grattan Grat Dalton, alongside William M. Bill Dalton, this gang was a deadly mix of outlaws and lawmen. Initially, the Dalton brothers found themselves on the side of the law, serving as U.S. Deputy Marshals for a brief period. However, their thirst for danger and rebellion led them down a darker path as they became notorious train and bank robbers. One of the wildest members was Bob Dalton, who had even claimed to kill a man in the line of duty when he was just 19. But it was a fateful day on October 5, 1892 that sealed the gang's fate. Disguised with fake beards, they set out to rob the C.M. Condon and Company's bank and the First National Bank in Coffeyville, Kansas. Their plans quickly unraveled when sharp-eyed townsfolk recognized them, and news of the robbery spread like wildfire. As the Dalton brothers attempted to flee the banks, they were met with a hail of bullets from vigilant citizens. In a tragic showdown, every member of the gang except for Emmett fell to the furious gunfire. Emmett, severely wounded, faced justice and was sentenced to 14 years in the Kansas Penitentiary in Lansing. With the Dalton Gang dismantled, travelers in the Indian Territory could breathe a sigh of relief. The country and the railroads, especially, were now free from the desperate grip of this notorious gang. However, the cost of ridding Coffeyville of the Dalton Gang was steep, as it claimed some of the best blood in the process. Number 8. Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch. Robert Leroy Parker, famously known as Butch Cassidy, stands out as a legendary outlaw in the Old West. The infamous figure led one of the most prolific bank robbery gangs in history, the notorious Wild Bunch. Butch Cassidy's journey into a life of crime began as a cattle rustler and horse thief. His daring heists escalated as he gained notoriety for robbing banks and trains. The legend goes that Cassidy was once a butcher, earning him the nickname Butcher Cassidy, which later evolved into the moniker that struck fear into the hearts of many, Butch Cassidy. In 1894, Cassidy's criminal pursuits led to his arrest and a 2-year sentence in the state penitentiary for stealing a horse. Remarkably, after 18 months behind bars, he was released for good behavior. Upon his release, Cassidy reunited with a circle of criminals known as the Wild Bunch. This loose-knit band of outlaws, including the likes of Elsie Lay, Harvey Kid Curry Logan, Ben Kilpatrick, and Laura Bullion, started as rustlers and horse thieves, but soon earned notoriety for their audacious bank and train robberies. The Wild Bunch adopted a methodical approach to their crimes, meticulously planning each heist through reconnaissance and strategically stashing supplies and extra horses along their getaway routes. Their exploits spread like wildfire throughout the West in the 1890s, making them infamous in the annals of outlaw history. The true fate of Butch Cassidy and his companion, the Sundance Kid, remains shrouded in mystery. Most accounts suggest they were gunned down by Bolivian soldiers during a botched attempt to steal a mining company payroll. However, multiple reports emerged that the duo returned to the United States, living out their days under aliases. More than a century has passed since their presumed deaths, but the legend of Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch endures, forever immortalizing them as some of the most daring and elusive outlaws of the Wild West. Number 7. The Cowboys. The Dalton Gang, known as the Cowboys, was a notorious and loosely organized group of outlaws that operated along the Mexican border during the tumultuous times of the Wild West. Led by patriarch Newman Haynes Old Man Clanton, the gang's activities included cattle theft, stagecoach robberies, ambushing teamsters, and committing cold-blooded murder. Newman Clanton, along with his sons Ike, Billy, and Finn, arrived in the Arizona Territory in 1873, engaging in freighting and ranching. The Cowboys consisted of other dangerous figures such as Tom and Frank McClory, Curly Bill Brocious, Johnny Ringo, Pete Spence, and several others. Together, they formed a fearsome and elusive gang that struck terror into the hearts of law-abiding citizens and lawmen alike. Despite accusations of rustling, ambushing, smuggling, and harboring rustlers by legendary lawman Wyatt Earp, Newman Clanton managed to evade arrest for these crimes. The old cowboy operated with a sense of impunity, seemingly untouchable by the law. One of the most famous incidents involving the Dalton Gang was the Guadalupe Canyon Massacre in July 1881. In an act of brutality, Newman Clanton and several gang members ambushed a group of Mexican cowboys driving a herd through the Guadalupe Canyon, mercilessly killing 19 of them. However, this heinous act would not go unanswered. Seeking revenge for the earlier ambush, the Mexican cowboys turned the tables on Newman Clanton and his men, leading to a deadly confrontation. In the same canyon where the massacre had occurred, Newman and 4 of his gang members met their demise.
What is that now? The 12 hands in a row holiday? Son of a bitch, nobody's that lucky.
Number 6. The Bummers. During the time in the Wild West where infamous outlaw gangs reigned, there existed a group of ne'er-do-wells known as the Bummers, led by Eddie Shooter Coleman. Unlike the more ambitious and notorious gangs of the era, the Bummers were a motley crew of lowlifes, losers, and layabouts that plagued the Colorado Territory. Their prime target was the mining settlement of Auraria, which lies in modern-day Denver. Taking advantage of the territory's lack of incorporation and official law enforcement, the Bummers engaged in petty theft and vandalism. Under the cover of darkness, they would become loud, drunk, and rambunctious, firing their guns into the air to intimidate law-abiding citizens. But it was during the Christmas holiday of 1859 that the Bummers crossed the line. They stole a farmer's wagon filled with birds intended for Christmas dinners, igniting what became known as the colorfully named Turkey War. Fed up with the continuous mischief and petty crimes, the townsfolk had finally had enough and decided to take matters into their own hands. Gathering a determined vigilante posse, the citizens confronted the Bummers. In a clash between law-abiding citizens and the unruly gang, one Bummer lost his life during the fight, while several others were swiftly lynched. The message was loud and clear. The Bummers' reign of disruption and disorder had come to an end. Number 5. The 5 Joaquins Gang. In the midst of the chaotic gold rush era in California, a Mexican-born man named Joaquin Murrieta ventured to the Golden State in 1849 with dreams of striking it rich. Little did anyone know that he and his gang of family and friends collectively known as the Five Joaquins, would embark on a path of violence and infamy that would leave a chilling mark on the Wild West. Comprised of Joaquin Murrieta, Joaquin Botelier, Joaquin Carrillo, Joaquin Ocamorena, and Joaquin Valenzuela, the gang abandoned their hopes of finding gold and turned to a life of crime by 1853. Ruthless and audacious, the Five Joaquins engaged in a spree of heinous acts, including the alleged murder of up to 28 Chinese and 13 Anglo-Americans. Their crimes extended to stealing cows, horses, and ruthlessly attacking wagons, often resulting in multiple deaths. The state of California was determined to put an end to the reign of terror perpetuated by the Five Joaquins. In a bid to capture the wanted men, the California Rangers, composed of veterans of the Mexican-American War, were compensated handsomely, $150 a month, with a promised reward of $1,000 upon success. In July of 1853, the California Rangers finally cornered the gang. During the confrontation, 3 of the Mexicans were killed and 2 others were captured. As proof of their triumph, the hand of the three-fingered Jack, one of the gang members, was severed as a macabre trophy. However, the most notorious member of the gang, Joaquin Murrieta, met an even more gruesome fate. His head was severed and preserved in a jar of alcohol, displayed for members of the public to behold. The macabre display aimed to serve as a warning to others who might dare to follow in the footsteps of these ruthless bandits. The dark tale of the Five Joaquins gang continues to reverberate throughout history, even inspiring the creation of one of fiction's most iconic characters. In 1919, Johnston McCulley found inspiration for his legendary character, Don Diego de la Vega, better known as Zorro, in the 1854 book The Life and Adventures of Joaquin Murrieta, the Celebrated California Bandit, by John Rollin Ridge.
Muy pronto todos los de nuestra sangre que odian a los gringos sabrán lo que estamos haciendo.
Number 4. The Reynolds Gang. Wild West history is filled with stories about the Reynolds Gang, a fascinating and mysterious group. Emerging from the ashes of the Civil War, this gang of Confederate soldiers turned outlaws embarked on a daring criminal spree in the Colorado Territory. Led by Jim and John Reynolds, their primary targets were coaches passing through the treacherous Kenosha Pass, and they weren't afraid to resort to bloodshed when the need arose. The true motives of the Reynolds Gang remain shrouded in controversy. While some historians argue that they remained loyal to the Confederacy, acting under military orders to disrupt Union supply lines, others believe that their actions were driven by more personal and nefarious pursuits. The stolen money, according to some accounts, was intended to be saved and sent back to bolster the Confederate Army's cause. However, as the gang continued their spree, the law-abiding citizens of the Colorado Territory had enough. A posse was formed, determined to put an end to the gang's reign of terror. On July 31, 1864, a dramatic gunfight ensued. One of the outlaws lost his life, while 5 others were captured soon after. Only John Reynolds and Jack Stowe managed to elude capture, escaping into the unknown territory of New Mexico. The controversy surrounding the gang's demise only deepened. According to the official story, the prisoners were killed during a supposed escape attempt. However, an inquiry conducted by Confederate sympathizers suggested a far darker truth. The men were allegedly chained to a tree and executed under the orders of Colonel Shivington, the same man responsible for the infamous Sand Creek Massacre. The story of the Reynolds Gang doesn't end there. 7 years later, John Reynolds found himself partnered with a man named Al Brown. During a violent gunfight, Reynolds was fatally injured. In his last breaths, he reportedly divulged the location of the gang's stolen loot to Brown. The treasure was hidden somewhere in the vicinity of Mount Logan. However, fate intervened when a landslide altered the landscape, making the treasure's exact location elusive. Ever since that revelation, treasure hunters have been on a quest to unearth Reynolds' lost treasure, hoping to find the hidden riches left behind by this enigmatic gang of Confederate outlaws. Number 3. The Jennings Gang. There is something peculiar about the character of the Jennings Gang, and not everyone is cut out for a life of crime. Led by the infamous lawyer-turned-outlaws Al and Frank Jennings, the gang made headlines for their association with a former Wild Bunch member, Richard Little Dick West. Despite the initial fear they instilled, their criminal career was short-lived, lasting only a few months in 1897. Operating primarily in Oklahoma, the Jennings Gang attempted to rob trains, stores, and even a post office. However, their heists proved to be more of a farce than a menace. In one instance, they walked away with a mere $15 from a general store, while another time their attempt to rob a train resulted in an empty safe blown to bits. Their criminal incompetence quickly caught up with them, and they were apprehended by the law. Only Little Dick managed to evade capture, though he eventually met his fate in a fatal gunfight a year later. Al Jennings' journey took a more intriguing turn following his 5-year stint in jail. In 1907, he received a presidential pardon, which opened the doors to a new chapter in life. Jennings ventured into politics and successfully secured the Democratic nomination for Oklahoma County Attorney in 1912. Remarkably, he ran on a platform of honesty, openly discussing his criminal past with the public. Although Jennings didn't claim victory in the political arena, he caught the attention of Hollywood. Embarking on his 4th career, he transitioned into a silent film actor. With a filmography boasting 24 acting credits, Jennings even starred in a 1914 biopic about his own life, titled Beating Back. His newfound popularity served him well, and he seized the opportunity to run for the governorship of Oklahoma. However, in the Democratic primaries, he secured a respectable 3rd place out of 6 candidates.
Why didn't you use it?
I'm a special agent, not a special fool. Just what I thought. Al Jennings.
Number 2. The Dodge City Gang. A notorious Wild West gang with grand ambitions, the Dodge City Gang made its mark on history. Their aim was to exert control over the bustling town of Las Vegas, New Mexico, using a combination of corruption, intimidation, and violence. The gang's short but impactful existence lasted only a few months in 1879, yet it left a mark on the history of the region. Led by Hyman Neal, better known as Hoodoo Brown, the Dodge City Gang was primarily composed of gunslingers who had fought together during the Railroad Wars in New Mexico. Hoodoo leveraged his reputation as a formidable gunfighter to secure the position of Justice of the Peace, promising to root out corruption. Instead, he appointed his fellow gunslingers to key law enforcement roles, including Joe Carson as Chief of Police, mysterious Dave Mather as Deputy Marshal, and Dave Rudabaugh as a policeman. Despite their positions of authority, the gang couldn't resist the temptation of occasional robberies. Soon enough, a deputy named John Sherman gathered a group of honest men to catch the criminals in the act. Most of the gang members were arrested, and while Mather managed to escape with an acquittal, he later built a fearsome reputation as a gunfighter before vanishing from historical records. Though Hoodoo Brown didn't directly participate in the robbery, his association with the gang was widely known, and an angry mob forced him out of town. The Dodge City Gang's influence was rooted in their criminal cartel, wielding power and control while participating in stagecoach and train robberies, cattle rustling, and being implicated in multiple murders and lynchings. However, the gang's reign was short-lived. By the summer of 1880, the citizens of Las Vegas, New Mexico had had enough, and they organized a team of vigilantes to confront the gang. Webb, Mather, and Rudabaugh were apprehended, and Hoodoo Brown, although not killed, was driven from the state. Many other members of the gang fled town as well. Their downfall was hastened by their own greed and excesses, making it difficult to conceal their criminal acts. The power and dominance of the Dodge City Gang was ultimately brought to an end by a determined community unwilling to bend to their criminal activities. While the gang's legacy might be tainted by their deeds, it remains a fascinating chapter in the history of the Wild West, serving as a reminder of the turbulent and unpredictable nature of that era. As for Hoodoo Brown, reports suggest he met his end in Mexico, ending his notorious and controversial life. Number 1. The Innocents. In the annals of the Old West, few tales are as enigmatic and controversial as that of the Innocents, an alleged gang of outlaw road agents that terrorized the Montana Territory during the gold rush of the 1860s. Led by a figure named Henry Plummer, a corrupt sheriff with a dubious reputation, the Innocents were said to have committed heinous crimes, including the alleged killing of over 100 people. Their nefarious exploits along the perilous road between Bannock and Virginia City struck fear into the hearts of miners and travelers alike. The origins of the name The Innocents stem from a secret password used by the gang, "I am innocent," and a specific knot in their ties that allowed them to recognize one another. The group, reportedly consisting of more than 100 members, employed a strategic approach, dividing themselves into smaller units to simultaneously strike different mining camps. They preyed upon unsuspecting miners, ambushing them during their journeys and plundering their precious cargo of gold. As the crimes escalated and the body count rose, frustration and fear spread among the residents of the Montana Territory. In 1863, fed up with the escalating violence, the citizens formed a vigilante committee with the mission to hunt down the perpetrators and bring them to justice. This group of self-appointed lawmen called themselves the Vigilante Committee. The turning point in the tale came in January 1864, when Henry Plummer was accused of leading the Innocents. While there was little concrete evidence linking him to the crimes, a supposed confession from a criminal attempting to save his own life served as a damning piece of testimony. Following the swift and controversial actions of the Vigilante Committee, Plummer was executed and an additional 21 men were hanged. However, the true identity of the Innocents and the extent of their criminal activities remains a matter of intense debate and speculation to this day. The official version of events portrays them as a highly organized and ruthless gang of highwaymen who engaged in a reign of terror, leaving a trail of bloodshed and stolen gold in their wake. The widely circulated account attributes over 100 killings to their name before they were brought to justice by the vigilantism of the citizens. Nevertheless, in recent decades, historians have raised doubts about the authenticity and scale of the Innocents' crimes. Some scholars question whether this gang even existed as a cohesive entity. While records do indicate incidents of gold robberies and murders during the gold rush, linking them together or implicating a single gang proves challenging. Furthermore, no definitive evidence has been found to confirm the fate of the alleged victims or the whereabouts of the stolen treasure. The official narrative gained traction due to its source. A reputable figure in Montana's early history, Thomas Dimsdale, the state's first newspaper editor and author of The Vigilantes of Montana. However, as new perspectives emerged, the public's perception of the Innocents began to shift. One of the most telling instances was the posthumous trial of Sheriff Henry Plummer, where the jury was evenly split, leading to a mistrial. Thank you for taking part in this thrilling journey through the lawless Wild West. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe and stay tuned for more fascinating historical stories.